Tell me if you see it. Give me a thumbs up. Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. I'm Task Force Bourbon. Today we got something very special in store from our good friends down at Bluegrass Distillers. If you haven't been there, definitely recommend checking them out. They're doing great things down there. And one of those great things is this new maple barrel finish, what we're going to talk about today. But we're actually going to lead into to this tasting a little bit first with who Bluegrass Distillers are, where they're at, when you might be able to expect to see this release, and we'll talk a little bit about that before we get into the tasting, and then we'll do the good stuff, say the best for last. So a little bit about Bluegrass Distillers. They're a company that began distilling in 2013, opened their doors later in 2015. They began distilling using a unique 250-gallon copper pot still, which was crafted in Portugal by Castelo de Paiva. The still was originally wood-fired. However, this was not exactly a practical method for the small enclosed space of the distillery, and so the copper still was converted to utilize steam. Bluegrass Distillers' first release was a traditional high rye influenced bourbon in November 2015. They joined the Kentucky Distillers Association in 2014 and were added to the Craft Bourbon Trail in 2017. KDA, that's the Kentucky Distillers Association President Eric Gregory, explains that, quote, the craft tour offers the opportunity for visitors to experience our smaller distilling operations that are building upon centuries of rich tradition and heritage. They are the next generation of our timeless craft. A huge recommendation from me, and I'm sure anybody who's been on the Bourbon Trail and has went to more than a few stops, check out a craft distiller. Bluegrass is obviously what we're talking about today. One of my personal favorites, but make sure you check out a craft distiller 100%. You won't be disappointed. So they're located in a historic neighborhood, north side neighborhood of Lexington, Kentucky. The distillery is one of their numerous tenants housed in the bread box at the corner of Jefferson and West 6th Street. I'm going to give you the address here now, and the reason so being is this is an early release. I got to talk to the guys down there, and they gave me this bottle so that we can talk about it a little bit together. And you all would be able to go down there and purchase it on the 25th. So that's just in a couple days. So if you like what we have to say at the end of the video about it, check it out. As you might see, a little foreshadowing, there's some other offerings that are also available there as well. But their address is 501 West 6th Street, Lexington, Kentucky. So while this has been their home for a little while now, they are looking at expanding at Elkwood Farm. That's coming in 2022, hopefully, and that's going to be in Midway, Kentucky. So that's going to be a humongous grounds, and it's going to be a humongous visitor experience. We're super excited to see what comes of that. I'll save the others because I'm a super big fan of their blue corn. That is solely unique to Bluegrass Distillers. They have a blue corn release. It's a very, very unique taste, right? So bourbon has to have 51% corn or more to be considered a bourbon amongst some other things. It doesn't say what type of corn it has to be. Blue corn is very unique. It's so unique so that their new make stuff that comes off the still, which is normally coined the term white dog or white lightning or something to that effect, they've coined the term blue dog. So, and it definitely tastes different, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. So we're going to spend a little time with Bluegrass Distillers today because when you go down there, you can check that out for their blue corn. They have a wheated bourbon. They obviously have a regular bourbon as well. They have a rye, I believe, and then this pickleback thing. I'm going to put that back here for now because it's super special, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is too. But leading into this, I actually thought that I had never heard of a maple finished bourbon before. I'll read the back of this. It says, our barrel finished bourbons are designed to expand the realm of flavor profiles that can be created in a barrel. We loan our previously used bourbon barrels to maple syrup producers so they can create a barrel-aged maple syrup product. This bourbon has been aged at least 2 years. So the TTB ruling on finished bourbons is that the time spent in the finished barrel cannot count towards the age statement of the bourbon. All right, but they're not doing that here. They're saying this is at least 2 years. I've heard this is maybe potentially closer to a 3-year bourbon, and then it's spent that time in the used maple bourbon maple barrel for about 2 months. And those maple barrels are officially undisclosed. However, they are known to have come from Wisconsin. And I thought that they were the only ones doing this. I do have to throw this out there. I had recently visited Prohibition Craft Spirits, who make Nulu spirits, to include their, they're really known for this brand specifically. And this brand's known for sourcing out of MGP, but this is their experimental finish, which it is also a maple barrel finish bourbon. This one happens to come from a single barrel Potion Pickers Select. I don't know who those guys are, but we'll crack this open too. We'll do a side by side. I'm not going to go ahead and see what one's better or not necessarily, but we'll talk about what we find on each. So let's go ahead and crack this fella open first. There he goes. That's the best part. Gotta get a nice healthy pour, if you're gonna taste something, you gotta actually taste it. Well, right off the bat, you can tell it's got a nice amber color. You know what I think of? I think of that like in Jurassic Park when they got the mosquito in the stone there, and the sap. I can actually kind of see that. No mosquitoes, thankfully, right? But it's got that same sort of nice color there. As far as nose goes, I'm actually not getting a lot of maple syrup. I mean, it's there, but it's definitely light. Excuse me. That's enjoyable. So, I hate to be the guy who's, bourbon guy who says it's smooth, but it is smooth. What you're greeted with is some of your traditional bourbon notes. You do have vanilla and caramel underlying. You have some maple syrup that is definitely starting to come out. Very thin and light. It's a little sweet, not sugary sweet. I gotta get a drink of water. Must have went down the wrong tube. Not a lot of oak on it though, which is a bit surprising. But it is a sweet sipping type of experience. The maple is definitely more present than the bourbon is, but not in an imbalanced way. It's a very nicely balanced bourbon as far as a finished bourbon is concerned. Anyway, this is definitely something I'm going to go ahead and recommend someone to check out because of how unique it is. Anyways, and then on top of that, you have a really nice sipping experience. It's almost like you got a touch pop of rye on the end there. I'm going to go ahead and grab this other glass, step out of frame for 2 seconds. Got me a second backup glass here. So we can do these a little bit side by side. Like I said, this one's from Nulu, from Prohibition Craft Spirits, their Nulu line, experimental finish. Barrels of straight bourbon whiskey are put into various wine, brandy, and cognac barrels for months at a time. We taste them diligently to ensure the finish is heavily present throughout the nose, palate, and finish. So this is distilled by MGP of Indiana. It says so right here on the back of the bottle, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Proof 116 as compared to, we have the maple barrel finish from Bluegrass Distillers, 100 proof. So you got 100 proof, you got 116 proof we're about to sample. This is barrel, just so everybody's tracking. It says B334M finish 3 months. So this is 3 months compared to 2 months, 3 and 2, as so far as I've been told. And I actually have, I'll pull it up on my phone here. I believe I have the actual master tasters tasting notes on this as well when I went and visited those guys. So let's go ahead and I guess I don't need the knife after all. Sometimes these wax tops can be tricky. I'll like this back's a little bit. There we go. Oh, goodness. Okay. That's a good healthy pour. Yeah, respectable. I think you can see it apparently. Let me put this back. Here we are. So this is the Nulu in its color. It's about the same, I would say. This one has more oak, a little heavier oak on it. This one's more lighter and sweeter. This is the Bluegrass, a little sweeter. This one's got, yeah, it's a little more, it's got maybe a grape fruity kind of note to it or something. So on the open, you get more oak. You get some sort of heavier spices a little bit, like the baking spices. That maple syrup comes in maybe a touch thicker, not stronger in the sense that this is more maple and this one's not. This, you know, like they're both definitely maple. It's just, you know, you go to the supermarket, you get, are you an Aunt Jemima's person or are you, I don't even know, what's another brand? The other brand. Right? So you have the two different types. It's really dealer's choice. This one's got more of that thicker, maybe on the edge of molasses type kind of thickness to the maple syrup. But this is definitely a sweeter kind of maple syrup that I'm getting on this one as compared to the Nulu. This one's got a touch floral, but it's definitely got on the back end that maybe I said that grape was on the nose. I don't know if it's exactly a grape, but there's definitely some sort of darker fruit note that carries through it. And while that's typically fine for me to think like you'd have a bourbon with some complexities, you got fruits, you maybe got a touch, you know, splash floral or, you know, so, oh, there's some oak. This one definitely finishes more oak heavy. And does it say how old this is? It sure doesn't. But I'm going to go ahead and presume, like all the rest of the Nulus, are about 4 to 5, typically, is what I've seen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I think I would wager to guess this is probably a 5-year as compared to this one, which says it's a 2, more like probably a 3 from what I'm hearing. And you get more bourbon notes. And where I was going with that earlier is I think that if I want something maple barrel finish, I'm buying it because, or I'm drinking it because it's a maple barrel finish. It's not because it's a good, you know, just a good bourbon by itself, and I got to compare this bourbon against that bourbon, and here's my rating. I'm buying it for its unique factor of being that. So who, in my opinion, achieves the maple barrel finish better? I think I like, you know, I know it looks like I'm a little stacked bias-wise, but I think I'm going to go maple barrel finish from Bluegrass Distillers just because of that, at the very least. While this definitely has some of the more heartier notes, it too is a very fine pour. Really, I would suggest if you have the means and capability, get them both, try them both, do what I just did. You know, if you need an excuse to drink bourbon, here I am. You're welcome. But I'm going to go and say you've got 2 days to get in line to go check out Bluegrass Distillers. They're excellent people down there who are doing great things. Small craft distillery. Nulu is as well. But you know, they'll definitely treat you right down there. And I think, you know, you really can't go wrong with either or. But what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and just cap these off real quick. And we're going to talk a little bit about the rest for those who are interested in hanging around. I have to save the pickleback for last because boy, oh boy, it is pickles. Let's see. That's a little foreshadowing. But let's get this last tail of notes. Make sure we're completely accurate here. All right, this is the right ones with Bluegrass. What a nice nose. It's like I'm smelling an open bottle of like Aunt Jemima or something like that. And I know some people are huge maple syrup peeps, and you've got your one thing, and how dare you say that's like low class or something, whatever. I don't know. Maybe you got some highfalutin maple syrup. I'd like that too, I'm sure, but Aunt Jemima's got a special place in my heart, so I'm referring back to it. Yeah. All right, so I'm still happy with it, but it's going to be for you all to decide whenever y'all get around to it. What I'm going to go do now is set those aside. I have backup glasses. Have no fear. All right. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take a quick rinse. I'm going to pull up and talk about the Bluegrass Blue Corn. So I actually got to talk to Key Piles. He's the master distiller down there a while back when this first kind of came out. Or actually, that was a pickleback. Excuse me. So I'm getting ahead of myself. That's not where I was going with that. I stand corrected. So the mash bill for the blue corn is 75% blue corn, 21% wheat, and 4% malted barley. So it's a wheater, a blue corn wheater, which is kind of weird, is it not? That's kind of weird, mix up there, but it works really well. Trust me. So starting an experiment with chemical engineering intern students from the University of Kentucky. Bluegrass Distillers took a chance on the blue corn mash recipe because the raw spirit, coined Blue Dog as opposed to White Dog, has a subtle taste and floral nose for an unaged spirit. In 2015, Bluegrass Distillers partnered with Gilkson Farm in Winchester to grow GMO-free blue corn locally. So there's two offerings. You have the single barrel cask strength, which is my personal favorite. And then they have a bottle and bond. I believe they're on batch 3 or 4. I just had their batch 3, phenomenal. But I only have here with me for the bottle and bond is their batch 1, number 1. I got that when it first came out, and it's a bottle and bond. So if you don't know about bottle and bond, you should. It's definitely a cult love affair within the bourbon community. That means to us a few things, but one of those is at least a 4-year product that's been controlled and monitored in some way. Not so much of a huge concern nowadays with all the reputable businesses that we consume with. But that tells me that it's aged at least 4 years, which is exactly what it says right on the bottle. Aged at least 4 years, right on the bottom. See if there's anything else really worth sharing here on the back. So no, but we'll go ahead and dig into this guy. So you can smell the blue corn right away. And it's one of those notes that if you haven't had blue corn, it's really hard to tell you what it is, because as soon as you smell it, as soon as you taste it, you're like, that's blue corn. Even if you probably haven't had it, you're like, it's some sort of darker corn. It's such a prominent, unique thing. It's like blue cheese or something, right? Where you're like, that's blue cheese, right? Love it or hate it, right? You know exactly what that smell is. Wow. So comes in swinging with a smoky vanilla that like burst, and then right behind that it bursts through with this blue corn and wheat. So it also continues into like a sort of nice butterscotch in the mid. I think previously I've tasted some sort of peppery notes, maybe because it's half full and it's gotten some time to open up a little bit, and maybe it's got a little oxidation going. I don't know. It's kind of chilled out on that front. There's a little less of that spice that I initially tasted, but it's very buttery. It just coats the mouth. Very buttery popcorn, blue popcorn. But all of this experience with the blue corn, it's a bit heartier. It sits like heartier, and so that it almost drinks above its proof. It's smooth, like its proof is at 100 proof, more like maybe 86. It kind of tastes like it's got that lighter mellow body like an 86, but it definitely has the depth that you find on a higher proof bourbon. But it too is fantastic. Like I said, if you can, I'm going to go the cask strength offering, every day of the week. And then last but not least, I definitely got to get a new glass for this guy. I'm just going to use my wee cleanse, so don't laugh at how small it is in my hands. But the pickleback is the one, in fact, that I actually got to talk to the master distiller, but that's not it. This is the pickleback right here. So we're talking about pickleback now. And you can notice, too, what's kind of neat, little side note here, is these two ladies, pictures, how am I twisting it all backwards, on the front are from they're the same lady. That was extremely difficult. So when asked how this, because it says on the back, the pickleback bourbon is a renegade. We fill old bourbon barrels with pickle brine, let the barrels soak in the essence of the pickle for a couple months, and then refill the barrels with straight Kentucky bourbon aged at least 2 years. When asked how this renegade was invented, Key Piles, again, he's the master or senior distiller over at Bluegrass Distillers, he responded with, quote, "Well, the idea came to me one Saturday night. I was doing what every guy in his mid-30s does on a wild Saturday night. I was at home making my own pickles. While adding different peppercorns to add a bit of flavor to my brine, the idea hit me. I wanted to make the world's first pickleback bourbon. As a fan of pickleback shots, which we'll talk about, the traditional shot of whiskey with pickle juice chaser, oh, there it is, I couldn't wait to give it a go. Bourbon is such a traditional spirit, and as we all know, us bourbon people can have the tendency to be a bit pretentious with our palates. I'm a guy who tends to make waves, so what better way than to create a zany product to turn the bourbon world upside down. Pickleback uses their flagship mash bill of 75% corn, 21% rye, and 4% malted barley. To achieve this unique profile, they fill old bourbon barrels with pickle brine, sourced locally, let the barrels soak in the essence of the pickle for a couple months, then refill the barrels using straight Kentucky bourbon, which was aged at least 2 years, and finally bottled at 100 proof. Pickleback was initially released during National Pickle Week. So we'll go ahead and dig into it now as well. I don't need much of this. I've sipped on. This is my second bottle because of how unique it is. It's kind of fun to bring out. In full transparency and honesty, this isn't something I'm going to drink all the time. But and I think first of all, you absolutely have to love pickles. If you don't like pickles, you're definitely not going to like this. But if you like pickles, or people who like pickles, and they're into bourbon, and if they're a little pretentious, like myself a little bit, and in the way that I only really want to drink something that's bourbon, well, this is a bourbon. It's a finished bourbon, but it's still a bourbon, and it's fun to break out at like parties or events. Or like, hey, you know what? You want to try something I bet you haven't had? I bet you haven't had this. And I bet they haven't. So go ahead and maybe pick you up a bottle of this too. It's fun. Oh my gosh. Right up front. It's like I dunked my whole head into a jar of pickles. All the way in there. It's like like a spicy pickle. Oh my gosh. So, for those who don't know, pickleback is a coin term for a shot where it's whiskey with some of the pickle juice, essentially, that's thrown in there and you take it as a shot. It tastes exactly like that. Exactly. It doesn't taste like the maple barrel finish is like, oh, it's some bourbon. It's got the finish thing. It feels so subtle and it's really good. And it's got the sweetness and it's kind of balanced. And this is like, homie, you're drinking some pickle stuff. That's what it tastes like. So let's talk a little bit about that. So you know how like pickle chips, if you ever had pickle chips, it's like that. If you like chips, that's great. If you don't like if you like pickle chips, you're gonna like this. It's not overpowering, right? Even though I'm kind of making it seem like it is, because it's definitely a light-bodied expression. But there are some things because underneath the pickles, you do get a bit of splash of your caramel, a little pepper, but I think really that's from, I think it's like a spicier type pickle. Yeah, and a great. It's a fun pour. I'll say that. This is one that's going to be really hard to rate because you're either in the pickle camp or you're not. But and if you're not, you'd hate me if I was like 5. But perfect rating. It is what it is. But it's fun, and it might, if you have the means and ability, go pick up your bottle and try it out. Share it with friends, like all bourbon is meant to be done. Yeah, if you like that, they have other offerings too. They've got, like, the only last one I have here is the single barrel wheated cask strength. Why not? I'll pour another little wee clan of that just because the last one I have, I have everything, it seems like, aside from their actual bourbon, which too is a fine bourbon. So you can go down there, you can get a tour, you can get a tasting. You can talk to any one of the team members down there. Most of them are involved in the process to some degree, and they'll walk you through everything much better than I have. But last but definitely not least is their wheated bourbon, and they do offer an experience where you can actually bottle your own bottle, whatever they have up in the rick house. They have one barrel usually where you can they'll tap it and you can put this up there and bottle your own thing. So that's a really neat experience. So those craft distillers sometimes, and I love going to Jim Beam, I love Buffalo Trace, I love Wild Turkey, I love those guys, right? Who doesn't, right? But they're big. It's a big company. When you go to these craft distillers, like you're going to go down to Bluegrass Distillers and check them out. They're a smaller operation where you're able to get that personal touch. You're able to really ask questions in a smaller group. You're able to see things you probably didn't see on other groups and really understand the process maybe a bit more than you did before when you went to some of these bigger guys. And I definitely recommend checking them out and picking up at least, if 2 days time, one of the picklebacks or the maple barrel finish or whatever you can. But we'll go ahead and dig into this wheat real quick. So you can sense the wheat on the nose, but it's not up front. It's on the mid, behind like a caramel, which, surprise, bourbon. So a lot of vanilla on the front, and then bam, big burst of wheat. And I'm going to go on a limb, and I actually think when I tasted this originally, I was like questioning what wheat it was, and I had to get confirmation. But they did confirm this is a red winter wheat, so it has that little bit of. I believe that's the same wheat that they use down at Maker's Mark, so it's got a little similarity there, a little bit, in terms of at least the wheat flavor notes. And a very well-balanced finish. It's got a nice healthy dose of oak that goes from that softer wheat profile to this healthy dose of oak. And I won't spoil all the other notes because there's definitely some in there, and this has already been quite a long enough live video. But if you've checked out Bluegrass Distillers, I'd be love to hear your feedback on your experience with them. If you've had something else, or you've had maybe the Nulu we were talking about earlier, love to hear back from you all too. Another great craft distiller. Go check them out too. They really focus on that prohibition aspect on their tours, and that's something to see. So go ahead and make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. But what I will say is I got a little bit of leftover bourbon here, and I'll finish off with cheers. If I can figure out how to turn off the live video. There it is.